Oh. Wow, that was really good. You said this stuff just comes from a sink?
It's it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. That substance you're drinking there, water, it's actually due to it's subject to one of the most important natural processes we have here on Earth, where it evaporates and precipitates and it circulates through all of our ecosystems, and it allows for all life to exist here on Earth. We actually have so much of it here that we call it the big blue dot, just because we got so much water. Um, but even with that, the United States Bureau of Reclamation says that only about 0.5% of all of the water on Earth is potable or ready for us to drink. So, how do we get from only having access to about 0.5% of the water on Earth to being able to establish civilization in places like Phoenix, Arizona? Well, now we have municipal water filtration, where we have enormous quantities of water that all get filtered, distilled, and then boiled all together. And that can provide for the water consumption needs of entire cities. But before we had modern infrastructure, how else were we going to be able to get our drinking water? Some ancient civilizations developed early methods of water filtration. We have evidence of things like sand particulate filters and cloth filters, but these methods notably have really big problems with them. Like, they each take a lot of effort and they take a lot of time, and both of them are focused on physical contaminants. They can only really get rid of particulate in your water. They can't do things like get rid of bacteria, which may be harmful. So, next, I'm going to show you in my kitchen some different water filtration methods and how effective they are, what the water looks like afterwards.
After the initial first flow, it soon settles down to one drip after another. As time has gone on, the water coming out of the millbank bag seems to be even clearer. If we look inside, we can see all the detritus that hasn't got through the filter.
As mentioned previously, methods of water filtration are really limited. We can really only affect things like the physical contaminants, not really the bacteria in the water. That's the reason why we need both distillation and boiling in municipal water filtration. So we don't really have lots of evidence of ancient civilizations engaging in all three of those at once. The exception to the rule is the Mayan civilization, in which we have evidence of sand particulate filtration and distillation and boiling. So, if ancient water filtration is so incredibly limited, what do we do? So, if water filtration is so difficult, then what did ancient civilizations do when they didn't have access to clean drinking water? Well, the answer largely is alcohol. So we have a lot of anthropological research regarding alcohol in ancient civilizations. And we've found through testing of shards and remnants of um, pots, for example, that alcohol has existed since as far back as 7,000 years before Common Era. We have um, lots of evidence of people drinking fermented beverages containing rice and fruits, for example. Further, anthropological research has suggested that alcohol can be used as an indicator of societal progress, as only those ancient civilizations that had access to alcoholic beverages to the fermentation required for them were able to move into different places that didn't have those direct sources of clean drinking water. Today, here in my kitchen, we're going to be talking about how to make booza, which was a popular medieval drink which contains oats and sourdough starter and is an alcoholic beverage which often was a replacement for those clean drinking water sources.
So in order to make the booza, you're going to want to start with a big batch of grains. You're going to put that big batch of grains into a big bowl like this, fill it with water, and let those soak in the fridge for about 8 to 24 hours. And then, once you're done with that, you can split up those grains into 2 portions. And you're going to get half of those portions. You're going to drain those out and put them into one of these mason jars. And this one, you should cover up with a cheesecloth and then seal, in order to have some of the moisture be able to evaporate out. And these you're going to let sit for 1 to 4 days to sprout in order to become malt. The other half of the grains, you're going to take these and you're going to put them into your food processor. And you're going to break those up pretty roughly. And then with that soaked food processed grain mixture, you're going to mix that with your sourdough starter. And you're going to make some small loaves out of that. And then those loaves can go in the oven for just a little bit each, around 200 degrees. We're going to be par baking those. So only partially baking them until they've set but not browned. So once you've done that, you can put the sprouting oats are just going to stay out for 1 to 4 days. But then the loaves we can put in the freezer until those sprouting oats are done. Once all of those have been done, once the oats have sprouted, we can get out those loaves and thaw them out. And next, we're going to boil up some water, and we're going to put it into our fermentation vessel. For me, I'm going to be using these jars, but ideally we would have one large crock pot. So we're going to take out the loaves. We're going to have those defrosted at this point. And we're going to put the sprouted oats into the food processor. We're going to grind them up just about the same we did with the oats we did earlier. So then we're going to crumble up those loaves that we had baked on the previous day. We're going to combine them with our just now ground up malted oats. And we're going to make that dry stir that fairly well. For mine, I'm going to pour half of each of those into each of these hot water vessels. But in an ideal crock pot, we would just pour it all right in there. And then we're going to stir that up really, really well until that water goes down to room temperature. Then once that water is room temperature, we're going to add a little bit more sourdough starter to each of these vessels, or to the single vessel. And then we're going to seal those up and let them ferment for another 1 to 4 days. So once that's done fermenting, it's going to really obviously slow down. You'll see less bubbles coming up. And at that point, what you'll want to do is you'll want to take the booza mixture and pour it out into the sink. Do not pour it out into the sink. You're going to strain it and take the liquid. The liquid is now your booza. The liquid is drinkable at this point, but it might not taste perfect. So what many people will do is put that cloudy liquid into another vessel and then add a spoonful of honey or some other sweetener and then leave it to ferment for 1 more day in order to get that flavor. Then those oats that you had strained out, we could use for bread or something else, but those are not necessarily useful anymore for the booza. Importantly, now we've got our clear liquid, and that is alcohol, and it is safe to drink. And that's what many people would have been drinking thousands of years ago.
Whew. Wow, this civilizational collapse thing sounds really fun.